Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Top news executive Mark Sharman is next to give evidence in the lockdown inquiry. So why did the mainstream media in Britain and all over the world, in fact, fail so spectacularly when it came to questioning all aspects of lockdown during the COVID crisis? And how crucial were draconian Ofcom regulations here in the UK to the apparent conspiracy of silence that developed? Well, one man who knows is Mark Sharman. That's because he's one of Britain's top broadcasting executives, having served as Director of Broadcasting at Sky News for 5 years, before eventually becoming the Director of Director of News at ITV. And Mark Sharman joins me now. And Mark, it's such a pleasure to have you here as part of the lockdown inquiry. I know this is quite a big deal for you to come out from behind the camera, where you've been an executive in the industry for so long.
Yes.
But I know you want to do it because you have been so disturbed by the coverage of many of your former colleagues, the organisations that you used to work for over the course of the pandemic. So can you just start by explaining this chilling warning that Ofcom gave near the start of the pandemic and how you think that may have impacted the coverage?
Well, I definitely think it impacted. It's not so much an Ofcom regulation, it was advice, or a warning actually.
It's like a little bulletin, wasn't it?
It was a warning to basically say, do not question the official government line. Now, to be fair to them, they said you can have opposition voices on, but presenters must intervene if there's any danger of harmful or misinformation. And
so did that essentially turn presenters at the BBC, Sky News, into essentially representatives of the government?
Yes, I think it did. Not just on-air talent. I think that warning affected all broadcasters. Most of the major broadcasters followed it, and actually it was only the one or two little smaller ones who wouldn't have that backup power who got caught. I mean, Uckfield Community Radio was censored for putting something out. But actually, I think what it's led to, I think it's created an environment which will lead to the biggest assault on freedom of speech and democracy I've known in my lifetime. I've never seen a warning from Ofcom like that. I've never seen the broadcasters toe the line. And rather than question the government, they became cheerleaders for the government.
And why, Mark? Why? That is the question I always ask myself, because surely the job of the BBC, ITV News, Sky News, two of the places where you used to work, surely the first job as a journalist is to question the government and to question the official narrative. So why did they not do that when it came to lockdown?
It is the first job. I mean, we've all been trained to give both sides of a story and let the viewer decide. But clearly, all the way through the pandemic, only one side of the story was given. And the media, actually, broadcasters and newspapers, picked up the torch that had been created by these behavioural psychologists and created this fear. The broadcasters picked it up with relish, and they really were spreaders of panic and fear.
They bought into the propaganda.
They did. They bought absolutely into the propaganda, and I think it was very dangerous. But I think you have to probably look beyond Ofcom and beyond this country, because, as you said, this was a worldwide lockstep occurrence. And in parallel with media, you had big tech, new media, who were censoring everything.
Well, I want to come on to big tech, actually, because they took the lead from Ofcom to begin with, at least in the UK, and the impact was absolutely chilling, because it meant someone like me who, for example, started to question very early on the theory that the COVID-19 had leaked from the lab in Wuhan, we were immediately slapped with misinformation labels. The broadcasters that we worked for would get one of these strikes, and it meant that if you got 3 strikes, you would actually be removed from the platform, be it YouTube or Twitter. So for financial reasons, no broadcasters want to be removed from big tech. So it encouraged a climate, didn't it, of people being ultra cautious with what they published.
Yes, and it wasn't just the media, it applies to individuals. You know, this censoring and banning and blacking and warnings go across the board, and there are certain triggers, as you know, certain words that will get you banned. And there appears to be a worldwide narrative.
And they were taking the lead, weren't they, from the CDC and,
yes,
and
I mean,
Fauci?
there is a worldwide narrative, and the big tech and media worldwide have followed it, and anybody that spoke out against it was censored. Now, in big tech, it was by blocking and censoring. In our media, it tended to be by ignoring the other side of the story. I mean, I know from my personal experience that freelance journalists were pitching stories and ideas to newspapers. People within the newspapers and within television were going in with ideas to balance, and they were being shown the door. I mean, not sacked, but the ideas were not accepted.
And the same thing happened to scientists, didn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
it
you
did.
look at some
It
of
did.
our
It did.
eminent
Yes.
epidemiologists. Take the example of Sunitra Gupta from Oxford University, an absolutely brilliant woman. She was blacklisted by all of the mainstream broadcasters.
Scientists, doctors, any journalists and individuals, anybody that questioned and spoke out. And some of these people are eminent, as you say. They were branded as false information, misinformation, conspiracy theorists. You know, it's so easy just to, if you disagree with you, you're a conspiracy theorist. You know, yeah, they were all.
So again, I would ask why. What was it inside the BBC and ITV and Sky News that made them go for this narrative? Was it ratings? Because of course, for a period, fear really sold, didn't it? These journalists had more power than they'd ever had in their lives because we were all locked in our homes and we were hanging off the every word of a COVID hysteric like Robert Peston at a press conference. Did they become addicted to the ratings? Did they become addicted to the power? Or was there something more sinister than that?
I think to begin with, I think probably we all believe that this pandemic was worse than it's turned out to be. And I think there was an honest feeling that they were doing right by the country to begin with. I think it's later, and particularly over vaccines, where the media have let the country down. You know, why would you not ask questions about the government doing a secret deal with Pfizer that took away any responsibility for anything going wrong from Pfizer? They've given them indemnity. Why would you do that? Why would the FDA and Pfizer hide their documents and their trials, or try to, for 75 years? You know, these are suspicious things, and the questions should have been asked. And of course, what we're now seeing is some of the documents have been released, and we're seeing that the trials were anything but safe and effective. And at best, it's faulty, and at worst, it's fraud.
And do you think that the media got behind a great national effort when it came to the vaccine? Is that what they thought they were doing? Essentially, we're locked down, we need to get back to normal. The government's saying the only way we get back to normal is if we vaccinate the whole country. So we need to encourage folk to be vaccinated and feel comfortable being vaccinated. Is that what it was about?
Yeah, I think to begin with, probably, and to some extent, yes, because I mean, not every individual is the same. But I don't think you can ignore the fact that the government spent, or will have spent, £500 million on advertising.
And this was keeping newspapers afloat,
which for newspapers in particular.
and a lot of
is a
broadcasters
lifeline, yeah. But I'm afraid you also have to look at the ownership. You know, this is where conspiracy theory gets put all over us. But most of the world's biggest companies are owned by BlackRock and Vanguard, and that includes a lot of the media. Bill Gates Foundation puts a fortune into the media, including the BBC's charity. The BBC's own trusted news initiative is a partnership between the BBC and the big tech. And of course, that's also funded by BlackRock and Vanguard and Bill Gates.
So your argument is that there were...
Vanguard and BlackRock also own about £35 billion worth of stock in Pfizer. You know, that ownership connection is there. Now, it's not for me to say that's a connection. I don't know. I don't know whether instructions came down. But it's unhealthy, I think, that so much of the media is owned by the same people that are driving the science, is owned by the same people that are making the drugs.
And for those reasons, perhaps it wasn't worth them really going down the path of looking into vaccine damage, looking into the side effects, reporting on myocarditis, for example, in young men. Those sorts of stories you think maybe the mainstream media avoided?
Vaccine damage is, and the efficacy of vaccines is my biggest bugbear, because still now people are not accepting how many vaccine injuries and deaths there are. I know because I've had a lot of emails from people and I've interviewed a lot of people, and it's heartbreaking. And you know what's also heartbreaking? The doctors they go to see will not accept it's a vaccine injury. So lots of these people are suffering twice.
And you would think that you would see these people in the media, but you don't. Well, Mark Sharman, absolutely fascinating insight from someone who was one of the top names in news broadcasting in the UK. Thank you so much, Mark. Now, of course, we do give you both sides of the story here on GB News. So defending its pandemic coverage, a BBC spokesperson said, "We believe the level of coverage was proportionate to the importance of the issue and the many aspects to it." Of course, though, they didn't really talk about the damage from lockdown, did they either? There you go. Now, does the MSM only have itself to blame?